Star Trek. The motion picture is one of Hollywood's most famous unfinished films. The director boarded a plane to the Washington, D.C. premiere carrying a print that he knew, and openly admitted, was not finished. Not a rough cut, not close enough. A film that had been pulled from the editing room before it was done because the release date could not move. What got it there was 4 years of false starts, a year of wasted effects work, a creator sent on a cruise to get him out of the way, and a $44 million bill that nobody had planned for.
Did we just see the beginning of a new life form?
Yes, Captain. We witnessed a birth.
1. The director took an unfinished film to the premiere. Robert Wise was one of Hollywood's most accomplished directors. West Side Story, The Sound of Music, The Day the Earth Stood Still. He did not deliver unfinished work. On December 6, 1979, he boarded a plane to Washington, D.C. carrying a print of Star Trek, the motion picture that he considered a rough cut. The effects work had been completed only days before. Scenes had not been tightened the way he wanted. Editorial decisions had been forced by the calendar rather than by judgment. Wise stated plainly in later years that the theatrical version was not the film he had set out to make. He spent over 2 decades waiting for a chance to fix it. That chance eventually came. 2. Star Wars forced Paramount's hand. Star Trek had been off television since 1969. It grew in syndication, attracted a devoted fan base, and by the mid-1970s, Paramount knew they had something valuable. The plan was a new television series, Star Trek Phase 2, with most of the original cast returning. Then Star Wars opened in May 1977 and made $775 million worldwide. Paramount scrapped Phase 2 immediately. If audiences would pay to watch science fiction on that scale, a television series was thinking too small. The planned pilot episode was pulled from the production schedule and handed to a feature film director. The budget jumped from $3 million to $15 million overnight. It would keep climbing from there. 3. The budget ran to $44 million. The original estimate for the motion picture was $15 million. Paramount had pre-sold the film to theater chains for $30 million in advances against that number. By the time filming wrapped on January 26, 1979, after 125 days of production, the budget had ballooned to approximately $44 million, making it the second most expensive film ever made at that point, behind only Superman, the movie. Jeffrey Katzenberg, then a Paramount executive, described the production as a runaway train. Script rewrites continued on a daily basis throughout filming. On some days, actors arrived on set with no pages at all. The director had nothing to shoot. 4. Nimoy had refused to come back. Leonard Nimoy had spent years trying to escape Mr. Spock. Paramount had used his likeness without permission on an enormous volume of Star Trek merchandise, and his relationship with the studio had collapsed completely. He told his agent that if the subject of Star Trek was raised again, the agent would be fired. A new Vulcan character was written to replace him, Lieutenant Zahn, played by David Gautreaux. Costume fittings happened. Plans were made. Then, at some point during pre-production, Nimoy changed his mind. He negotiated script approval and returned. Gautreaux was quietly reduced to a minor supporting role with a handful of scenes. His version of Spock's replacement never reached the screen. 5. The effects company wasted a year. Douglas Trumbull, the man who had created the visual effects for 2001, A Space Odyssey, was Paramount's first choice to supervise the film's effects work. He declined. The job went instead to Robert Abel and Associates, a respected commercial production company that had never before delivered effects work for a major feature film. They spent a full year and millions of dollars on footage that was entirely unusable. The company had been attempting to use computer graphics technology that was not yet capable of producing results at the quality the film required. When Paramount finally reviewed what had been delivered, the answer was essentially nothing. Abel was fired. Trumbull was called back and asked to complete the entire effects workload in a matter of months. 6. Roddenberry was sent on a cruise. Gene Roddenberry was the creator of Star Trek. He held the producer credit on the motion picture. He was also, according to Douglas Trumbull, kept entirely away from the production. Trumbull later stated that he had zero contact with Roddenberry throughout his entire time working on the film. When he asked why, he was told by the studio that Roddenberry had been, in his own words, put on a lush vacation cruise somewhere to keep him out of the way. Paramount had concluded that the production could only move forward if its creator was not involved in it. Roddenberry's credit remained on the finished film. His input did not. 7. Persis Khambatta asked for hair insurance. Indian actress Persis Khambatta had been cast as Lieutenant Ilya originally during the Phase 2 television development. When the project became a feature film, she stayed with the role. Ilya was a Delton, a species depicted as completely bald. Khambatta would have to shave her head completely for filming. She became deeply emotional about it. She kept the shorn hair stored in a box. Before going through with it, she asked Gene Roddenberry to take out an insurance policy on her behalf in case her hair did not grow back. It did grow back. But the anxiety around the decision was real enough that the insurance request was made in complete seriousness. The shaved head became one of the most striking images in the film's marketing. 8. Scotty invented the Klingon language. The opening sequence of the motion picture features Klingon officers speaking their own language for the first time in Star Trek history. It was the first time the franchise had depicted the Klingons as fully realized aliens with their own distinct tongue, rather than simply English-speaking villains. The language was not created by a linguist. It was invented by James Doohan, the actor who played Scotty, who also created the Vulcan words used in the film. Doohan constructed enough vocabulary and phonetic patterns to make the dialogue work on screen. His invented Klingon was later used as the foundation by linguist Mark Okrand when he developed the full Klingon language for Star Trek III. Doohan's creation spawned an entire constructed language that people now speak fluently. 9. The Klingon forehead problem. Nobody explained for 25 years. The motion picture introduced a visual change that created a continuity problem that Star Trek took 2.5 decades to officially address. In the original television series, the Klingons had smooth foreheads and looked essentially human. In the film, they appeared with heavily ridged, textured foreheads for the first time. The two versions were visually incompatible, and the series offered no explanation for the difference. The gap was not officially addressed in canon until the Enterprise episodes Affliction and Divergence in 2005. 26 years after the film introduced the redesign, the writers constructed an entire storyline to explain the biological discrepancy. A visual shortcut taken in 1979 required a dedicated multi-episode arc to resolve. 10. The blaster beam was 15 feet of aluminum. The sound that represents V'ger throughout the film, the deep, alien, resonant tone that signals the presence of something vast and unknowable, was produced by a single custom-built instrument. The blaster beam was created by Craig Huxley, a musician who had actually appeared as a child actor in 2 episodes of the original Star Trek television series. The instrument was constructed from a 15-foot length of aluminum with metal strings running its full length, amplified underneath each string. Jerry Goldsmith used it as the signature sound for every V'ger sequence. Its dark, inhuman quality became inseparable from the film's atmosphere. Huxley patented the design in 1984. 11. The score became the theme for The Next Generation. Jerry Goldsmith composed the film's score under severe time pressure. He had only a limited amount of footage available when he began, and less than 4 months to complete the work before the release date. The main theme he delivered, this sweeping, optimistic brass fanfare, now instantly recognizable as the sound of Star Trek, was not used as the film's primary theme by director Robert Wise, who preferred a different Goldsmith motif. Gene Roddenberry disagreed with that choice. He loved the rejected theme so much that when Star Trek The Next Generation launched on television in 1987, he used it as the show's opening theme. It has been the sound of Star Trek ever since. Goldsmith received a single Academy Award nomination for the score. He did not win. 12. The only props they remembered to bring were Uhura's earpieces. The entire visual identity of Star Trek was redesigned for the feature film. New uniforms, new sets, new Enterprise interior, new equipment. Everything was built from scratch. In the chaos of production, one small category of props was overlooked entirely. Nobody had made new communicator earpieces for Uhura. The production went back to the original series prop store and retrieved the exact earpieces Nichelle Nichols had worn on television. They appear unchanged in the finished film. The only physical objects carried over directly from the 1960s series into the feature film. Nobody noticed at the time. Most audiences still don't. 13. Roddenberry deliberately avoided a space battle. After Star Wars, every science fiction film in development was looking for ways to deliver action, spectacle, and combat sequences. The motion picture went in the opposite direction. Roddenberry made a deliberate creative decision to exclude space battles entirely. He wanted to distinguish the film from Star Wars clearly and position Star Trek as something more philosophical and contemplative. The threat in the film is not hostile in a conventional sense. It is simply incomprehensible. The decision was divisive. Critics called the film slow. Fans who wanted combat were frustrated. Roddenberry held the position anyway. The irony was that the sequel, The Wrath of Khan, was built almost entirely around the action and combat that the motion picture had refused to provide, and it became the most beloved film in the franchise. 14. Wise finally finished it. 22 years later, Robert Wise never accepted that the theatrical cut was the version he had intended to make. He said so publicly and repeatedly over the following 2 decades. In 2001, Paramount gave him the opportunity to supervise a director's cut for DVD release. He tightened scenes, restored footage, added new computer-generated effects to replace unfinished shots from 1979, and corrected technical errors, including a measurement that placed V'ger's cloud at nearly twice the size of the solar system, which he reduced to a more plausible figure. The director's cut is considered by most critics and fans to be a significantly better film than the theatrical version. Wise died in 2005, 4 years after finally completing the movie he had started in 1978. 15. It was the second most expensive film ever made. At $44 million, the motion picture sat behind only Superman, the movie as the most expensive film produced up to that point in Hollywood history. It earned $139 million worldwide, a profit by any reasonable measure, though short of Paramount's expectations, given the pre-sale advances and the budget overrun. The studio's internal assessment was that the film had underperformed relative to what it had cost. That judgment directly shaped what came next. Paramount told Roddenberry the sequel would be made on a fraction of the budget, with a different production team. Roddenberry was removed from creative control. Harve Bennett was brought in to produce The Wrath of Khan at a cost of $11 million. 16. The theme outlasted everything. The motion picture is not the most beloved film in the franchise. That distinction belongs to The Wrath of Khan. The slowness that frustrated audiences in 1979 still frustrates some viewers today, but its fingerprints are everywhere. The director's cut inspired J.J. Abrams, who screened it before making his 2009 reboot. The blaster beam sound-shaped science fiction scoring for a decade. The Klingon language Duhan invented became a living, constructed language with a full dictionary and thousands of speakers. And every time Star Trek The Next Generation opened, every episode, every season, every time Patrick Stewart walked onto that bridge, the music playing underneath it was the theme Roddenberry rescued from a film that almost nobody thought was good enough. a film boarded onto a plane unfinished, a creator shipped off on a cruise, an effects company that burned through a year and delivered nothing. And somehow, the theme that came out of it is played at the start of Star Trek ever since. Drop the fact that landed hardest in the comments, and subscribe. There's always another story hiding inside a film you thought you already knew.